Hello everybody, Double RPG here, and welcome back to more Super Godzilla on the Super Nintendo. In the last episode, we took down Level 1, or Stage 1, where we fought against King Ghidorah. And in this episode today, we are going to be fighting off against Mechagodzilla here around a place in Mount Fuji. So yeah, we are going to Level 2, which is Mount Fuji today, and it's time for us to take on another one of Godzilla's most deadliest adversaries. The mechanized Godzilla known as Mechagodzilla, or you can call him Terminator Godzilla or whatever, but anyway, let's go ahead and get on with this episode that's already in progress. But before we get on with the battle, let's go ahead and get on a little history lesson. Mechagodzilla starred in 5 films that Toho has produced throughout the years that Godzilla has been around. You know, when they made the movies from 1954 to 2004. And the movies he starred in were Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla in 1974 to coincide with the 20th anniversary, then the direct sequel, which is Terra Mechagodzilla, and then in 1992, which I believe is Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, and then he made his appearance in the 2002 movie Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 3, or Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, and then in the direct sequel, which is called Tokyo SOS. Throughout the years, Mechagodzilla has underwent many different transformations, but with the Heisei series and the Millennium series, they portrayed Mechagodzilla as a good guy, whereas in the first series, he was portrayed as a bad guy. And as you would have guessed, he has gone through many different transformations in terms of his character design, where the second one has a little bit of a dopey expression on his face, which tends to kinda really anger a lot of people when compared to the mean look of the first, with the first design of the character. But at least with the third Godzilla, or the third Mechagodzilla, they at least made him look like his first movie counterpart a little bit better. You know, with the updated designs, but keeping the overall impression. But they don't hardly refer to it as Mechagodzilla in the movie. They constantly refer to his name as Kiryu, which tends to kind of confuse a lot of people, because with Mechagodzilla, with this character, you are expected to call him Mechagodzilla. But anyway, Mechagodzilla is definitely another one of Godzilla's memorable adversaries, and next in line to King Ghidorah. And he has a very big cult following from around the world, where his likeness has been used throughout many different adaptations in pop culture. But sure enough, it wasn't pleasing to the fans that he did not make a cameo or make an appearance in Godzilla Final Wars. But, you know, with the original Godzilla still in place for Godzilla Final Wars, it was kind of hard to put Mechagodzilla in the fray. But, you know, it can't be helped. But anyway, Mechagodzilla is the enemy that we are fighting in this episode, so let's go ahead and get right onto it, shall we? Alright, it's time for us to go to Mount Fuji already. And when we're here at Mount Fuji, you can actually hear there is some different music playing in the background. So yeah, at least this game has some music variety too, so it makes it all at least a bit worthwhile. And as you would have guessed, our objective is to try to find Mechagodzilla, but first things first. We're actually trying to find this creature who has called himself Godzilla, who is wreaking havoc around Mount Fuji, so something must be definitely amiss. So we're going to have to find this perpetrator and reveal to him his true colors. But there's also another thing that we need to take into account since we are here in this open area of the battlefield, is that we will end up fighting against these UFOs that randomly appear out of nowhere within the level. But if we find the mothership within the level, then we can destroy it and no more of the smaller UFOs will be able to attack us. But the smaller UFOs are pretty easy to kill as they only have 50 points of energy. You just pretty much need to destroy it with Godzilla's fiery breath. And that's all it takes. You don't need to do a tail swipe, you don't need to do a body slam, you do not need to do hyper fiery breath, even though that would be very more effective. But you just only need to take them down with, just his plain fiery breath, his signature attack. And yes, be careful when you're at this area, because there will be some of those rocket beams, or whatever, the rocket ammunition guns that are around the field, because they will do a lot more damage than the regular tanks that patrol around the field as well. So, and be careful of the landmines too, and you will actually find more of these landmines here in Mount Fuji in some of the later levels. So this is kind of the point where this game is going to become a little bit more difficult than what we have gone up against so far. I mean, sure, King Ghidorah was a cakewalk, but now it's time for us to get serious by taking down this guy. or taking down the boss of this level today. Okay, now we're going to take on the next enemy with Godzilla's fiery breath, and that UFO is down. They just only have 50 points, and you could just take him down with the fiery breath. I really like that about Godzilla, is him constantly using his signature ability. It really defines it for his time. I mean, for him being an original character. And of course, some people say, oh, that's not very realistic with him to have fiery breath and being indestructible. Well, I'll have to say to that is that's baloney, because it doesn't matter if things are realistic or not. When a character is defined for his trademark abilities, that's the character he's defined as. I mean, it's the same if they made Spider-Man realistic, and I agree, and I definitely agree with James Rolfe on this. It doesn't matter if it's realistic or not. Something that is trademarked within the character is freaking trademarked within him. So, Godzilla has fiery breath, and he's indestructible. And yes, I made a quote towards one of the episodes of his Godzilla-thon, which he did back in 2008, which is a really good retrospective, too, that's on YouTube. So if you haven't even checked it out yet, then I highly endorse you guys to check it out. It's a very good history lesson about the Godzilla movies, and it got me very interested in the Godzilla films, to be precise. It's because he's telling it from a fan's point of view, because he is a hardcore fan of the franchise. So yeah, it's a very good history lesson. I definitely encourage you guys to go watch it on YouTube right now. Okay, now, as you would have guessed, which I should have been talking about a minute ago, is that we're fighting off against the mothership UFO. And if we destroy the mothership UFO, as I said, no more of the smaller UFOs will come into place. But as you would have guessed, the mother UFO has a lot more hit points than the regular UFOs that we fight against, the smaller ones. Alright, so we no longer have to deal with the UFOs in this level, so our only priority is to take down the Imposter Godzilla, who is located in Area 2A, which should be to the west of us. But as I said, with every level you go through, make sure you constantly look for the yellow tiles to give you all those power-ups that you can use within the battle, whether if it's to restore your energy, or to be used as a means to increase your defenses or your strength. They will definitely come in as a big help for when you're fighting off against the bosses. Okay, and here we are again with another nuclear reactor plant or nuclear energy source to where we can actually restore Godzilla's nuclear energy. Because, remember, he's born of nuclear radiation, so it makes sense, right? Yeah, I thought so. Okay, now I think we're at a good spot to where we can go ahead and we can go trace down the Imposter Godzilla. And yes, I constantly keep referring to the Imposter Godzilla as Mechagodzilla because, let's face it, that's who we're going up against in this episode today. Gosh, two of Godzilla's most memorable enemies end up being the first bosses, or a couple of the first bosses in the entire game, when they should clearly take place at the end because of them being more deadlier in strength, speed, defenses, and almost anything. I mean, Godzilla sure enough has a hard time fighting off against those guys in the movies. I mean, he's got help from some of his other movie monster buddies like Rodan and Mothra, especially with Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, when they all took him down. But when Godzilla fought them on his own, especially when he fights against Mecha-King Ghidorah, he really gets his butt handed to him. So it's no easy feat to go up against enemies like those when he's going to need all the help he can get. Alright, and the Imposter is very close to us. I might as well go ahead and stock up on some more items or some more nuclear energy before I go fight against that enemy. Now, when we get up to the fake Godzilla, you might be surprised what we need to do in order to defeat it. But let's go ahead and fill ourselves back up first. Might as well, right? Okay, here's another energy reactor. And there's one right next to it, and we'll use it. You know, wouldn't they make Godzilla just stop right there when he's getting his nuclear energy? I would assume that they would do that. Oh well, we'll just do it with one. But yes, with the Imposter Godzilla, we are finally fighting off against it. And it has a little bit of a different hue to his color scheme. But he's a little bit faster. But he is pretty weak. But the only way you're going to need to defeat this guy is that you just only need to punch him once. Just like that. Yeah, weakest giant movie monster ever. But there is a reason for that, because his true strength is hidden underneath that fake flesh. So yes, this is Mechagodzilla. And the people are telling us that weak fire breath is not going to be enough to hurt Mechagodzilla because of him having the ability to spin his head around in circles to where it could actually create a barrier. And some of you might be surprised which type of Mechagodzilla we're actually fighting off in this battle. Believe it or not, this Mechagodzilla is actually from the first series, if I'm not mistaken. The Showa series that Toho created at first before they went on to the Heisei series and then the Millennium series. So yeah, the Mechagodzilla we're fighting against is actually the evil one. Whereas in the Japanese version, the one that Godzilla fights off against is actually the good one, believe it or not. So yeah, there are some differences between the North American version and the Japanese version of this game, where the Japanese version is more along the lines of the Heisei series, whereas this game is actually kind of more a little bit of a hybrid between the second series or the first and second series. And as you would have guessed, Mechagodzilla is pretty much a hard match to go up against, so we're definitely going to need to conserve our energy as much as we can, or think of some different strategies. I mean, if you're down on energy and if you don't have enough on you to take down your enemy, then don't feel free to don't feel bad about hesitating, because definitely, it's a lot better to, it's definitely a lot better to, don't even hesitate to retreat, because it's definitely a lot better to retreat to regain some of your lost energy, and it'll give you enough time to plan out your tactics a little bit more. Okay. And as you would have guessed, Mechagodzilla is using eye lasers and some of the missiles that are from his hands or his fingers. But as we are fighting off against this enemy, we need to make sure that we are constantly using the hyper fiery breath to do a lot of damage to this guy. Or if you are not in line to get in enough of those hits or those types of attacks, then make sure you are using your tail whip and your body slam. But as I said, don't end up using your regular fiery breath, because it will just deflect off of you. But I don't know if it actually hurts you or not. I think it does, but the hyper fiery breath is going to be your best means of doing a lot of damage, as I've been saying. And if you, like I said, as I said in the previous video, if you constantly keep using or just constantly keep punching at your enemy when you're getting close to it, sometimes you can stagger his fighting spirit a little bit. And which you can tell I've been doing right now, so, or if you want to get to the defensive measure, then you can actually use this and you won't even take any damage at all. But be careful, because the object is only temporary and your enemies are going to get in a lot of hits to where they're actually going to use up the defensive fighting spirit to where you're no longer invincible. Okay, now we're using Hyper Fiery Breath against Mechagodzilla, and he's using his barrier to protect him, but his head is not spinning. But that's what would happen if he was using his barrier, is because of his head spinning. But I guess they didn't have enough animation to show his head spinning to create the barrier, so I guess that is what we're going to get in this fight. Are we using Hyper Fiery Breath again? Yes, we are. Very nice. Yeah, that Hyper Fiery Breath actually does a lot of damage, as I've been saying. And it's definitely a godsend in this battle, because after the first fight with King Ghidorah, they just pushed the envelope with making this game really, really hard. And I will say that Mechagodzilla definitely is not the hardest boss we're going up against in this fight, as there's definitely another enemy that's a lot more stronger than him and a lot more deadlier for us to take down. And that is the next enemy who we're going to be going up against in the next level. Okay, we pretty much use the regular fiery breath against Mechagodzilla, but evidently that is not enough. He's going to use a chest missile on us, and that only does a little bit of, well, it didn't really do a whole lot of damage, but it pretty much took off the defensive fighting spirit which we had equipped to Godzilla, so we're not going to be able to take him down with complete defenses in this fight, as you can clearly see. Okay, I guess we're going to have to use a tail whip on him. So yeah, when looking at Mechagodzilla, you never thought he would have so many things that would try to instantly counter against Godzilla in terms of the attacks that he has. I mean, he has toe missiles, knee missiles, finger missiles, a chest missile, or is it supposed to be a chest laser, or eye lasers, or eye beams like that. It's just, or a mouth laser, I can't even be sure. And he also has electricity, so he has plenty of attacks to do on his enemy. So he's definitely not someone you want to push. Is somebody that you do not want to push his buttons on, or someone that you shouldn't push your buttons at. Oh boy. And we're getting closer to defeating this guy, as he only has almost 150 energy points left. So yes, we're getting the best of him at this point. And once you take down once you learn how to get past the learning curve, then he's pretty much a cakewalk in the rest of this fight. But as I said, be careful when you're fighting off against him, and make sure you're not even using your regular fiery breath, as I'm doing right now, because he will end up countering with that chest missile. And that will do a pretty significant amount of damage, but not enough like the eye laser or whatever, so just be careful. Or is it an energy beam? Oh, no, it was a chest missile, as I figured. And yeah, it didn't really do that much damage, but just be careful you don't make that a habit when trying to fight him. Okay, we're going to do our signature body slam again. I have to say that the body slam that Godzilla did on Mechagodzilla was actually a lot better. Because he actually did a pretty powerful slam to his enemy. I mean, not only that, but it's just that doing that body slam is actually probably one of the most unique things I've seen Godzilla do in terms of his attacks. Because probably the funniest attack that he's ever done is actually in the movie Godzilla vs. Megalon, where he actually does that torpedo drop kick to where his body is gliding in the air, and then he attacks Megalon with that, while Jet Jaguar is actually holding him up to try and stop him from moving around. Okay, we do another body slam, and that should be the end of Mechagodzilla right there. So, yeah, tough enemy, but he was a worthy opponent regardless. And there is our little stage clear victory that Godzilla is doing. And he shoots off his signature fiery breath, and victory indeed. Okay, and we are getting the statistics on how well we did this level. And we didn't do a whole lot in terms of stuff that we destroyed, but we did gain a lot of points in terms of the energy, time, and bonus. So it's definitely a lot better than the first stage, but still, not a whole lot to give us a whole lot of continues. And as you would have guessed, the credits are your continues, to where you can actually resume where you left off. And trust me, you're going to want a lot of credits to when you're fighting off against your opponents, because they will definitely prove to be more of a hassle, and you do not want to end up using your continues. But I guarantee you, in the next fight that we're going to go up against, the enemy who we're going to fight, which is Biollante, is actually probably the toughest villain in this entire game. So, anyway, guys, as you would have guessed, the professor seems like he has gotten himself kidnapped, and we're going to have to go rescue him. But we'll do that in the next episode next week. So, next time on Double RPG Let's Play, which is the name of the show. I can't believe I forgot to mention it. But anyway, next time when we are getting back on track with Super Godzilla on the Super Nintendo, we are going to go to the next level, where we're going to fight off against Biollante. But we have to rescue the professor first, because he was about to tell us something in relation to Godzilla cells and King Ghidorah cells, it seems. Alright, gamers, take care of yourselves, and I shall see you next weekend for another Retro Live commentary. This is Double RPG signing off. Later, gamers!